women are kind of like the sun energetically. When we shine our light a little bigger and brighter, all those planets orbiting around us, kids and spouse or whatever, they can't help but shift in their orbit in reaction.
Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast. Discover yourself, break out of mediocrity, and become the mom you've always aspired to be. Here's your host, Kirsten Tyrell.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm chatting with a fellow podcaster who I absolutely adore. You can actually hear my episode on her podcast of Vibrant Happy Women. It just aired today, the day that we're doing this interview, and I actually listened to it, which I don't ever do, and I was really happy with it. So that just shows a good sign of a great podcaster. So welcome to the podcast, Jen Riday of Vibrant Happy Women. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Kirsten. This is fun to reverse roles.
I know. It's kind of fun, for me, sometimes I don't get nervous, but I'm like, am I prepared? Am I gonna fit into the structure of this interview?
Well, you're in charge. We have no structure. We're just having a chat like girlfriends.
We are. I love it. I love that component about like podcasting and listening in. It's kind of like you get to be a fly on the wall a little bit into people's conversations when it's a podcast. I don't know. I think it's just so much more personal and fun than reading a blog post because there's no inflection and I don't know. Obviously, we're both fans of podcasting.
It's true. Well, I don't have time to read blogs, but I can listen to things while I'm doing other things.
Yeah, exactly. So give everybody a little bit of background on you and your life as a mom, how many children you have, their ages, stages, that kind of thing.
Okay. I'll give you the moderate length version. So I met my husband in grad school at Iowa State, and we were both in PhD programs. I think I was in my master's actually when I met him. By the time I graduated, we both graduated at the same time and walked together. We were the R section, the only R's, Riday and Riday in that PhD lineup. It was pretty funny.
Oh my gosh.
So we got to sit by each other. And at that point we had one kid and one on the way. So we left Iowa State with two kids. My husband got a job in Madison. And we've lived here ever since. We love Wisconsin. And now we have 6 kids.
Oh, my goodness.
I did the stay-at-home mom thing, even though I have the PhD, because I had learned in grad school. Oh, I didn't mention my degree was in human development and family studies. So I learned all the research, and I'm like, I'm doing this myself. I know nobody's going to do it as well as me. So I guess what led to what I do now is after about 5 years of that, giving and giving and giving, I was making homemade bread almost weekly and lavish birthday parties and play dates. And I was just burnt out, just so unhappy. And then to add insult to injury, I had a miscarriage that Christmas. I'd had several, not a big deal. But my husband and I just had this gigantic fight on the way to the hospital. And it was just an eye-opening thing, you know? Like, we didn't get along well enough to even have a peaceful moment during a miscarriage. We had some problems, right?
Yeah.
So
sounds like it.
Yeah. And so that just became a turnaround point where I was like, wow, I'm not even going to let it get worse than this. And I'm unhappy. What can I do differently? And then I began kind of this journey, essentially, of figuring out what made me happy. And I realized I'm going to be happy no matter how my husband acts, because we, at that point we'd been married over a decade, and I realized he's not going to change. And now we all know our spouses don't change, but why I had waited over a decade for him to change is so stupid, really. And I'm like, I'm going to be happy. And so, I began that journey of self-care, and I'll stop there. That was a really long answer.
No, I love it. I was going to ask that anyway, so I'm glad you kind of segued into that, because I think so much of our story and what we do with our life starts with kind of those mothering years. And like a lot of us get kind of stuck in the daily grind of parenting, and there's nothing else. Even though you had this degree, you were really stuck in like the motherhood grind, and that was your only reality, and you had nothing really that you were fortifying yourself with. And I think that happens to so many women. I really feel like that's the biggest need for my podcast as well, is because there are so many moms who just give everything and then they forget to find ways to increase their own joy, which inevitably increases the joy in your home. So I love it.
I love that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I love your story as well. I didn't graduate with my PhD or anything, but I was pregnant with our second one when we both graduated, and I was sobbing before we even walked down the aisle or whatever to graduate together. We were able to walk together.
Oh,
and
yeah. Great.
Yeah, it was so fun. So, and now you have 6 kids. I have 3, and I just have these friends who have more than me, and I'm like, I don't understand how you even do it. So, how old are your kids?
3 up to 16.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's really fun. You've got the toddler age and the teenagers.
Yeah. So as much as I badmouth my husband indirectly already, I can say that things are better because of some steps I've taken. And it did involve the self-care. And we can go there later if you want. But he's a super involved, devoted dad. I mean, if he hasn't played a board game in a couple of days, he kind of freaks out. He's like, we got to play a game. I mean, we haven't played a game in a while, because he's so into being a good dad. Yeah, so I'm lucky that way. Yeah, so it's not as hard for me to have 6 kids when he's picking up the slack.
He's kind of doing his half.
Yeah. And then sometimes.
Yeah. Well, isn't that kind of the goal? If you're both doing 100%, then nobody's really slacking. But if you're waiting for the other person to do like 50, somebody's always going to be falling off a little bit, and then everybody's needs aren't met. So that's great. Right. I'm glad you have that. I don't feel like anybody could really do 6 children well on their own or with, of course people do it all the time, but not tricky. Well.
Yeah. So well, tricky. Looking at other families, I'm not even sure. I do think so. Kids in large families, they're going to get the shaft in some ways. They're going to not have some things as good as other kids. But in contrast, my kids are independent. They know how to work. They know how to meet their needs. And I think they're really well equipped to go out into the world and function, which is any parent's goal, right? So I guess it's okay.
It is totally okay. And there's really no right or wrong with family size. Like, I'm actually pleasantly surprised with how many of my guests have had larger families versus smaller ones. Really. It's kind of been eye-opening because I feel like society and culture today, you feel like crazy if you have more than 3 or 4 children, but I've had many that have had 5 or more. So I don't know. And I don't think that those children are going to be at any kind of disadvantage in life. I do think it's great. My kids are begging me to have another one. And I'm like, okay, I guess you're old enough that maybe you could pick up some of the slack, but you'll be doing some of the work if you want to have another sibling in this family.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll see what happens. The husband's not in the same camp as me which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your self-care journey and how that's really kind of transitioned into the podcast and the business and everything that you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, so I've had a lot of time to reflect on this, and I'm getting more and more concise on how I talk about it. But I think boiling it all down, a lot of women forget who they are after doing the mom thing, whether they work or not. They forget who they are because they're just constantly meeting everyone else's needs and never their own. And so in that process, you kind of lose your sparkle. And that's what happened to me in that low point. I kind of hated my life. I hated my kids. I hated my spouse because I just allowed myself to get that empty, And so I started doing more yoga. Yoga for me is like as good. 1 hour of yoga is as good as a trip for a weekend. I tell you, it is so restorative. I love walks in nature, and meditation is really great, and prayer, journaling. But more of it is really just like a mindset that it's okay to take care of myself. And the shift there, this is how I did it. I was thinking one day, what would my kids remember me for at the end of my life if I continue like this? And I realized even though I was kind of being the Pinterest-worthy mom, they would remember grumpy and tired and exhausted. And I thought, my gosh, that is not the legacy I want to leave at all.
Right.
So that was an eye-opener. And then I also asked myself, what is the most important thing that I want to teach my kids as a mom? I mean, I'd never thought of it. And I realized I want them to grow up and love their lives. I didn't want them to grow up and feel like me. So I had to make a big change.
Darn it. It starts with you.
Yeah, right. So that's the point when I realized it truly is true that the greatest gift I can give my kids is my own happiness. And I know a lot of women hear that and they cringe, but they're like, oh, but that's selfish. No, No, because how are they going to be happy if you don't teach them how? However you feel right now, if you have daughters, is likely how they're going to feel because kids pick up and parent almost identically to their own parents.
Right.
It's hard to shift it much from what they learned. So truly, the greatest gift you can give your kids is your own happiness. So,
oh my gosh, I love that so much, Jen. It's so true. That totally resonates with me right now. And it kind of completely blasts to the wind mom guilt, right? Like you should not feel guilty for wanting to make yourself happy because otherwise what do you have to offer to your children? It's like you said, a tired, grumpy, disappointed, discouraged mother. And that's not doing anybody any favors, but yet so many of us stay in that because we think we're like a martyr for our children and we just have to be their slave and not have anything to bring ourselves joy. So I love that.
yeah, and I always say women are kind of like the sun energetically. When we shine our light a little bigger and brighter, all those planets orbiting around us, kids and spouse or whatever, they can't help but shift in their orbit in reaction.
Yeah.
It's that powerful. So my kids are so much happier when I'm happier. They sense the energy even if they don't know it, and they'll be more peaceful, calm, focused, and my spouse as well. It's kind of a powerful gift, really. So I don't feel guilty at all for it anymore.
I love that. Do you feel, okay, so since you're a podcasting host and you have such a variety of women on your podcast, I'm asking this because I'm experiencing it right now. Do you feel like the right people come into your life at the right moment and you have these interviews right when you need them? Does this happen for you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
This is happening for me right now. So much.
Woohoo!
Meant to be 100%.
Yes.
I love
Awesome.
this.
Well, you know what else? I get these people emailing me all the time saying, Jen, I woke up thinking about this and then it was on your podcast. How do you do that?
Like, I just kind of follow what I think the universe wants to happen. And it's kind of like magic. It really is. It's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think I've had people, there was the coolest time was somebody emailed me about something that they wanted to share. And it was about like depression or something. They said, I don't think you've had anybody on talking about depression. And then the next day, somebody emailed me and said, do you have any episodes on depression? And I was like, oh my goodness, I will in about a week as soon as I interview this person who just fell into my lap. It's so crazy. But I love everything you're saying about self-care. And very, like, honestly, seriously, the last maybe week I've had this major pull to start taking better care of myself. I give so much, you interviewed me on your podcast. My life is very business centered and my work is kind of my play, but I've also missed out on the play being my play as well. Like the focus and getting centered and getting grounded. I love yoga too, and I don't know why I don't do it every day. It's just that one extra thing that I have to kind of check off my list or add into my schedule. But I know that doing those things would make everything better. And I love you referring to like the mom as the sun and everything orbiting around because I've seen that and I don't know why I do myself a disservice and don't remember that and to keep myself focused and in a really happy place because it changes everything. So thank you for sharing that. I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of podcast guests, something I've been learning, and I think I'll just share it a little. I used to take the hard path because I'm a type A personality. Mm-hmm. So I would always make it harder than it needs to be. And I have a business coach and also a couple of my podcast guests recently. So let's see, Elizabeth Ryder and Kate Northrup. I think their interviews. They talked about feminine and masculine energy. Many entrepreneurs or podcasters or moms operate from a place of masculine energy because they have to be organized and get it done. And that energy of play, like you're talking about, or having fun, or the kind of the relaxation and connection energy of the feminine energy, we forget. And when we're always driving with that masculine energy, we can get really out of balance. So self-care is just the restorative feminine energy that we need, and we need both. And men need both. Men need both as well. So I've been trying to, I made kind of a rule for myself this past week that I'm not going to make any decisions or even have any interactions. Now, this is the ideal, but I'm not going to make decisions or have any interactions unless I'm feeling in this place of alignment where I feel balanced and kind of, some people use the word vibration, like high vibration, aligned, connected to my intuition. You know the feeling when you
Yep.
just feel good.
Yep.
So, I'm getting up and sometimes I'm like, blah, I feel terrible. This day's going to suck. And then I will get on my rebounder. I'll do a little 7-minute high intensity interval training workout, just 7 minutes, maybe a bit of yoga, meditation. And I can always get myself back to that aligned, happy, intuitive place through the exercise. It's huge for me. Or a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go interact with everyone else. But if the 16-year-old is pushing the buttons and I'm starting to get out of alignment where I could say something snarky, I try to go escape, because what's the point of that interaction anymore?
Right.
So yeah,
Wow.
that's kind of where I am.
I wish
right
you
now.
could. I wish we had our video on still, because I literally just put my hands in the air like, are you kidding me? That is the exact routine I'm going to start taking on. I have the app like for 7-minute workout, doing the yoga and the meditation, and then I'm going to be a mom. So
Yeah.
thank you, heavens, for sending Jen to my life today. This is just confirmation I'm on the right track. This gives me chills. Makes me so excited. So I love that.
Okay. This is such a fun conversation. Thanks for validating me.
Oh my gosh, you deserve all the validation. I think we need certain people in our lives at a certain time, and you're my person right now. So thank you.
Well, so can I add something to that? Because
Yes, please do.
My thoughts are just flying right now.
Don't stop talking. Just go. I'm soaking it in.
So self-care, right? But there's this other element when I was doing the mom thing for so long, which I don't regret. I love my kids. But when one day in a yoga class, when I was getting in alignment, practicing the self-care, I'd spent a year kind of praying, thinking, asking what's next for me. And my daughter was 18 months at that point, my youngest. I knew I was done having kids, but I'm like, what's my big girl job? I don't just want to waste away in this pit of motherhood and unhappiness that I was kind of in. And so I had this clear idea, intuitive thought from God or the universe, whatever language you use, that I should become a life coach and help other women learn self-care. So I'm doing that. But what is so important about it is I love my podcast. I love what I do. I mean, I love these women, and I haven't even met half of them, but it's so passionate and energizing for me. So yes, start your journey of self-care. But then after that, you have to start to get in touch with yourself, develop a self-awareness. What are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? How am I feeling? And then keep going up and shift into a greater and greater place of alignment where you can wake up and say, I'm not feeling great right now. I'm going to shift that. I'm aware. I'm going to get into alignment, and then I'm going to pursue my passions. And maybe, just maybe, there's this purpose I have on this earth. And if there is, by golly, I'm going to find out. I don't say that, but it's fun. I'm going to find out what it is.
Yeah.
Because when we're living our purpose, there is such an energy and passion inside of you. You can hear it in my voice right now.
Yep.
That it radiates to everyone. So I know this question later. What makes me a marvelous mom?
You can answer it now.
Okay, thanks. It's that I am showing my kids that you absolutely should follow your passions, live your purpose, and be aligned, and not just think you're a victim of your circumstances. You absolutely can live your purpose. And I'm going to get off that soapbox. But
oh my gosh. No, it's fine. The soapbox is beautiful. Live on it. Live on the soapbox.
Yeah, my soapbox is pink with hearts. Yes.
Oh, I can totally picture it. It has to have some sunshines on there too. Like, sunshines. Because you're the sun.
Well, you have friends who say, I kind of want to do that. And they toy with it. What's so funny? You can tell me, but why are there women out there who don't go through that discomfort and don't get out of their, comfort zone and just do it? Just do it. It's so much fun. It's so fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, and anybody listening to the sound of our voice right now can tell that we're not pretending to be happy. Like, we are truly fulfilled from doing this and from sharing this with other people. I mean, we could see a fire start on our microphones right now because it's truly that passionate. And I don't know. I feel like I told you on my interview with you that's what makes me tick, is helping people realize their potential and pushing themselves to a much higher level of functioning. And it happened for me by hearing that I could fall into this like mundane lifestyle, or I could strive for something bigger. And so
Yes.
I feel like everything you're saying is resonating to a point where I'm like, I think I've been doing that, but kind of from a point of I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing or why that felt so good. And now I'm kind of coming, it's like a circle, like it kind of ebbs and flows. And now it's coming back to this point of I've served, I've done so many things for other people, I've grown as an individual, and now it's time to recenter and take all of that and then do something more. But you have to take the time to absorb it, to enjoy it, to appreciate it, and be grateful for it before you can then take it a step further. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And you probably have the sense you kind of have a calling to do what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I have
think
to
all of
say
us
something.
do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
please
that's
go
what I
ahead.
have to say something to our listeners, ladies, women. Every single one of you has something amazing to do. And you have to find out what your contribution is. Listen to your intuition. I swear you're going to be so happy when you step into that place. And those feelings of dissatisfaction or being low, those are like a sign or a signal to you that something needs to shift. So listen and do it, and don't be afraid. The best things are on the other side of fear.
Yeah. Oh, amen. I feel like I want to talk to you for at least another hour, but I kind of feel like that was a really good ending point. I feel like it's like a good call to action. Do something amazing and live life on the other side of fear. I think that is the most amazing visual, and so many good things happen on that other side.
Yeah. Awesome.
So thank you for sharing that, Jen. Honestly, you guys, if you want to hear more from Jen, you're just going to have to do what I do and go and listen to her podcast and hear all of the amazing things she talks about. She does happy bits, so they're really short little blurbs for all of you moms in a hurry to go and get a little bit of uplift and something wonderful that will make your day a little bit better, because that's what podcasting can do. You can be driving carpool and listen. So
Hey, and I want you to know I have a freebie for you and anyone listening.
awesome.
So you can grab it. It's at jenriday.com/selfcare. All one word.
Awesome. Yay. I'm going to do it as soon as we hang up. Everybody else go check it out. I will link to that in the show notes. And then, of course, they can find you, the Vibrant Happy Women podcast, jenriday.com, for all the good Jen stuff. So thank you so much, Jen, for being on here. I truly love you, and I'm so grateful we've had this second opportunity to connect and share your story.
Thanks for having me, Kirsten.
Anytime, you have to come back.
Okay, will do.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Okay, so fun story for you. I used to be the girl who would walk into Ulta or Sephora. Really, I've only been in Sephora one time, and would kind of want to collapse to the floor because I was so overwhelmed by the options, by the pricing, and everything that came with buying makeup. But I know it's necessary. I know I feel better when I get ready for the day, and that I'm more professional when I have makeup on. And so what I love is my makeup routine that I have now. It saves me money. It saves me time. I'm actually excited to get ready for the day, and I want to share that with you guys. So if you want to learn more about it and maybe be entered to win some amazing prizes and freebies and goodies along the way, go to kirstentyrell.com and check it out.